Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Marcel Plays RCT. Last time we did Poke Park, so next up is White Water Park. As the name suggests, it contains a bunch of water rides, a river rapids, a dinghy slide, a boat hire and 2 synchronized log flumes. It is our goal to expand this park to get to 900 guests by the end of year 3, so let's get started. And of course we start with the merry-go-round, as we always do, and since the queue line goes over a little valley, it is perfect for some walls under it and a roof on top of it. Some brick walls for the supports, and for the roof we will use tent pieces and my favorite of all, the pointy roof. It's a good thing that we're covering it, as during the construction it already starts to rain. Well, actually the guests don't care about covered queue lines, but we'll just pretend that we're doing a good thing to offset all the terrible things that I'm going to do later. Like quite a lot of other scenarios from Rollercoaster Tycoon 1 that do have rides, there are no stalls yet, so let's build one of all 4 available varieties. The burger stall and ice cream stall to get some food, and the drink stall and toilets to get something to drink. Opposite the merry-go-round is a nice place for a covered seating area to consume the food and drinks from the newly built food stalls. It's nothing too fancy, it's just some walls, a roof and a few benches and bins. Before we start building any substantial rides, we should do something about the absolutely terrible pathing situation. The entrance of the park is on one side of the lake and then the path goes all the way around it to the river rapids and it doesn't connect back for some reason. It's a really unnecessarily long walk from the boat hire to the river rapids or the other way around, and we can easily solve that with a bridge over the lake. After adding some more benches and bins to the path, it's time for our first roller coaster, a nice Woody. I'm not particularly fussed about the general layout of this ride, as there is really just one specific thing I want to do at the end of it. So the main layout will just be some generic drops and twists until we can line up well with the end. I can't quite figure out how to continue, so instead I'm going to start building from the end, from the other side. And this is where my special element will go. We'll remove the water and put in a water splash, which now looks like it's just some track built into the lake. This is a really neat trick that only the wooden coaster can do, as it's the only ride with a water splash. The stats aren't really anything special here, but they also don't really matter, as we're charging for the entrance and not the rides. In Rollercoaster Tycoon 1 you can charge for both the entrance and the ride simultaneously, but if you charge for the entry, the guests will want to pay far less for the ride than usual. I usually just pick one or the other to prevent any issues with this. Charging for the rides has a much higher potential, but only if you have the cash machine available, which did not exist yet in Rollercoaster Tycoon 1. Therefore, I'm charging for the entrance and making all the rides free. With advertising, we can make sure that we get plenty of guests and money. In these playthroughs, I always spend a fair bit of time on decorating instead of building rides, which means that without advertising, our guest influx would at some point stop and our income would dry up. At the moment, we don't have a lot of cash yet, so another roller coaster is probably not a very good idea. Instead, we should spend everything that we have left on a hill for a haunted house. Yes, that sounds like a responsible financial decision, especially after I accidentally dragged the mountain tool a bit too far and had to spend even more money to lower it again. Of course, this haunted house should be decorated with some scary looking trees and some dirt terrain. It's rather quite simple, but it's effective in turning this normal hill into a haunted hill. Putting some bushes in between the trees makes it look even better, even if you just plop them down in random places. Alright, we now have a few rides done and we should probably hire some staff to keep the park running. It turns out we did start out with one handyman, but he's being useless by mowing the grass and not doing important jobs. You know what, if he likes mowing grass so much, I will force him to do nothing but mow grass. He will be my grass mowing slave. Actually, I just realized that since he gets paid for this, it's kind of just a normal job. Oh well, I will just keep pretending that he is my slave. That's enough to make me happy. This is the point where unfortunately I have some bad news. There is this replay feature in OpenRCT2 that I was planning on using for the first time for this video, and up until now it has worked fine. It can be used to create time lapses like the one you're currently watching, and you can also use it to watch something that happened off screen. For reasons I had to end the first replay here and start another one, so this first replay worked fine, but for the second replay it did not save, as the game crashed at the very end of the playthrough before I stopped the recording. I still have my normal screen recording of my gameplay, but we can't do these time lapses or see anything off screen anymore. Since this is supposed to be a water park, let's build another boat hire. A trick I did not mention in my boat hire overview is using the track to create a fenced off area for the guests to paddle in. This works great, although I have a feeling that these long canoes might have some trouble navigating out of this. I guess time will tell. Non-water rides can also be turned into water rides, such as this Ferris wheel that I turned into a drowning wheel. The supports are a bit ugly, so I decided to build a structure under it that reminds me a bit of oil drilling platforms. I struggled quite a bit with getting this to look right, but in the end I think it looks quite nice. I made the Ferris wheel do the maximum of 3 rotations to drown as few guests as possible in order to keep our park rating decently high, but I don't know how well it will actually work. It's something we'll have to monitor. In order to make more money, we will have to build more big rides that increase the maximum entry fee that guests will want to pay. So let's build a junior coaster all the way in the back. Just a quick one that has decent stats so that we can now charge more for the entry. This ride is so incredibly unimportant that the only fitting name is entrance fee increaser. I made a little mistake while building it and the train doesn't quite make it, but after fixing that we can increase the entry fee to 40 bucks. Another non-water ride that fits very well on the water is the swinging ship, and this one in particular fits a park built by me even better. Why? Because when I built the path I totally accidentally trapped one of the bumper boats from the boat hire next to it. These suckers will never set foot on dry land again, and eventually there will be nothing left but their skeletons. While we are making money to afford a fun idea for a big coaster I have, we should build another small ride. So how about a go-kart? The tiny turns allow you to make it very compact, so it will nicely fit between the path and the park fence here. For some variety in the way the park looks, we'll make it classical Roman themed, with the ugliest and simultaneously greatest tiny tunnel I have ever built. The Roman style roof on the station is a bit too tall and pokes through the track above, which turns a calm, boring go-kart into an exciting Mario Kart track. At this point I noticed that the park rating was getting really close to 0. Even with the low throughput of a 3 rotation Ferris wheel, the guests just drown too quickly for the park rating to remain above the required 600. To entertain myself I decided to watch my last shred of rating disappear and see it display 0, but that didn't quite happen. Instead it fluctuated around a value ever so slightly above 0. I saw it go down all the way to 10 at some point, but never to 0. This happens because it takes 4 months for the park rating penalty of a drowned guest to disappear, and it has been about 4 months since we built this drowning wheel. So as new guests are drowning, the penalty from the first one has fully disappeared now. Still though, as long as this ride keeps operating, the park rating will stay this low, so if we want to beat the scenario, we'd better hope that it breaks down at some point. While we wait for that, it's time to build the big coaster that I have in mind. I want to build a looping coaster that provides the ultimate feeling of going through a vertical loop. How do we do that? By going as fast as possible, of course. First we go as high as we can and then we go down all the way before building a loop and heading back to the station. The speed of the train through the loop is over 120 km per hour, which is perfect for really making the guests experience the essence of the loop. And guests will ride this because despite 9.3 positive g-forces, it has less than 9 intensity. Even these warning signs on the queue line aren't making them scared. They truly are the bravest guests in the world, or perhaps the stupidest. It looks like our wish has been fulfilled, as the drowning wheel has indeed broken down. Since it has no exit path, mechanics cannot fix it and it will forever be broken. The guests currently sitting in the wheel have been saved from death, but now they're trapped forever in the wheel, so I'm not sure if that's actually a better option. The park rating will now slowly increase and be back to normal in about 4 months. Halfway year 2, which is also halfway the scenario length, we have over 2,000 guests and finally unlock the information kiosk, allowing guests to buy maps and umbrellas. And of course, these umbrellas will cost 20 bucks each. By now we're charging the maximum of 65 euros for the park entrance, which means that guests that spawn with 65 or 75 will not be able to afford an umbrella, and the ones with 85 won't be able to either if they've already bought a map or some food. But hey, that's what they deserve for being poor. The poor get wet. Only the rich elite that spawn with 95 euros will be able to keep their heads dry. Because 65 euros for the entrance is quite a lot and we advertise a lot, we have quite a lot of money now. So let's build a big fat mine train coaster on this bit of land that we still have in the back. A very long station so that we can fit plenty of trains and then we go haywire. Oh hey, see who we have here? It's the lawn mowing guy, still mowing lawns the best he can, while massive coaster track pieces appear out of nothing above him. Gotta admit, he's one brave handyman. I would have hightailed it out of there. The mine train doesn't have a lot of options for variety, it's really just drops and turns, but it can still look damn good with just that. The big wooden supports certainly help with that, and even though it's not themed in any way, the mine train aesthetic is still very nice. I consider the mine train to be kind of a wooden coaster light. It's a bit less bulky and can do less different things, but it has the same vibe. Near the end of building this I got a bit stuck and had to go underground to get me out of there, but it all worked out. On the other side of the station I went around a few more times before finishing it off. With a fairly high amount of 14 drops and a top speed of 99 km per hour, it gets to a nice 9.3 intensity, which is significantly more than the 8.7 of the Spine Crusher 8000 next to it, despite the fact that this ride will not crush your spine or any other body part. The dark golden color I put on it makes it seem like the sunlight is reflecting off of it really beautifully. Those areas are always lighter to simulate sunlight no matter what color you pick, but the illusion works a lot better with this color. At this point I decided a little trolling was in order. Remember our now broken down drowning wheel? I am going to put a path piece next to the exit without it being connected to the exit, and then I'm going to put a mechanic on it. The guests on the wheel will either feel fear because death is now apparent, or they will feel joy as they can finally die instead of being stuck on the wheel. But either way, nothing will actually What? Since when can mechanics cross these gaps? It turns out that in vanilla they indeed cannot, but here in OpenRCT2, perhaps it's a bug, they can. Now the ride will sadly be fixed, and after I remove this piece of path, our park rating will drop down to near zero again because of all the drowning. We just have to pray that it breaks down again in time for the rating to recover to at least the 600 we need by the end of year 3. We're 2/3 of the way to the deadline and the park is severely lacking in scenery. It has been filled up with rides pretty well, but between them there's a lot of emptiness that I'm going to fill up. First, some terraced flower beds and some barrels falling into the water near the boat hire, which by the way has been stuck for a very long time because the canoes are massive and the guests are stupid. Changing this tiny 180-degree turn upon entering the track will solve this problem. Next up is Marcel's Magic Mushroom Kingdom. Why mushrooms? Because they look nice and it allows the guests to pretend like they are Mario on their way to save the princess and actually have a purpose in their lives instead of being sad little husks that spend their entire time going to theme parks and nothing else. Before we build more scenery, I want to put a small compact wooden wild mouse coaster in this corner next to the park entrance. This is not quite scenery, but it fulfills the same purpose of filling up the space with something. This little bit of land sticking out into the lake can become an Egyptian beach, because why not? And before you start telling me that cacti are a North American thing and don't exist in Egypt, I know that, but it looks nice, so I will always keep combining the two. Pharaoh Joe Biden can now be buried in his local pyramid after he dies. Hey, would you look at that, the park rating is increasing again, the drowning wheel broke down in time! Despite the fact that 158 guests met their wet, watery end in less than 3 years, the rating of this theme park will be satisfactory once the deadline rolls around. Next to the Wild Mouse is a perfect spot for a little maze. I quite like the technique of creating a bit of flat land by digging into a hill. I'm not sure exactly why, but having some of these vertical cliff faces make the park look so much better to me. Now, one important thing to making your mazes actually work is to make sure that guests can reach the entrance. I had accidentally built it next to a sloped bit of path, which doesn't work. The exit will work fine there, as guests will exit onto the path properly, and it does not matter that the mechanics cannot reach it, as the maze cannot break down. Some Martian landscaping later, we have a really nice finished section here. On the other side of the park there is still some empty hill, and look, there's once again our lawn mowing hero, still mowing wherever he can. This will be the last time that he can mow these tiles though, as grass does not grow if there is something placed on top of it, and I'm going to place bushes and decorative trees everywhere on this hill. And this is what this part of the lake coast looks at the end. An Egyptian beach, a rocky section with pine trees, a Martian maze, some flower beds and a whole load of bushes and fancy little trees. In the back of the park we also have some empty hills, and this one is perfect for the biggest terraced flower bed of the entire park. 6 rows of 3 in a beautiful rainbow pattern. The diagonal side of this hill is a great fit for a triangle of neatly ordered bushes. On the lake side I'm going to put another terrace, but this time not for flowers. No, this will be Giraffe Hill, and we will all bow to our giraffe overlords like it's the year 1.5 million. After bowing, we're getting close to the deadline, so let's check in on Mr. Lawnmower one more time. In total, he's mowed over 1200 tiles, which I think deserves an award. I will put him on this raised tile of land, so that he will never have to mow again. Except there's one problem, as he just keeps walking off it like it's nothing. Oh well, if I can't trap him, I'll just build an ancient Roman statue and pretend that it's him, even though the statue doesn't have nearly enough abs to be realistic. A few random decorations later, such as this Colosseum with trees in it, the park is finished. It contains 5 roller coasters, 5 water rides, a whole bunch of flat rides and lots of scenery. In the end, we have over 3,700 guests, more than quadruple the goal, and we have over 140,000 euros in the bank. That's what constant advertising does for you. The first time the game crashed right as I beat it, which caused the replay to not properly save. But I had saved the park right before the deadline, as I always do for these parks, so I just loaded that save and all was fine. I hope you enjoyed this new installment of Marcel Plays RCT, and click here to see the previous episode. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.